So Nancy Pelosi has decided that she may be holding up the articles of impeachment. Tulsi Gabbard has decided she's not having it. Let's talk about it. So Tulsi Gabbard came under a lot of flack when she decided to vote present on the impeachment articles that were introduced. When they first tried to initiate the impeachment, she actually abstained because, well, she just didn't want to be a part of the nonsense. Then whenever they introduced the two articles, she voted present on both and was the only the only person in both parties to do so. And she got a lot of flack for that. Now, there are a lot of reasons as to why she said she did that, but primarily it seems to be that she does not want to engage in partisan political theater. Because essentially, voting yes or no would be pretending to be an antagonist or protagonist in political theater that is basically just for show, right? It's just entertainment, and it's to bring in the big bucks. You got to sell those tickets, right? And so, in an interview on The Hill Rising with Sagar and Crystal Ball, Tulsi was asked about this by Sagar. And I want to share with you all her response.
To this, the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said they may not even transmit the articles of impeachment to the Senate if they don't think that process is fair. Does that make it just a blatantly political statement from the very beginning? If they don't end up transmitting that, what message does that send about this entire process?
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that. Look, I think that you can't kind of just shift and change and make up the rules as you go along. If you're going to pursue this process, you've got to let it play out the whole way through. Again, I think that the hyper-partisan nature that we've seen throughout this whole thing, and again, this is not just on the part of the Democrats. You see on those who are defending Donald Trump, you see a blind loyalty to their party's leader, people who are proclaiming that, yes, of course, Trump, what he did was quote unquote perfect, nothing wrong. They're not exercising their responsibility to the American people in providing legitimate oversight. On the Democratic side, you see such extreme language being used, basically accusing the president of treason without actually saying the word, and tainting, therefore, any possibility of a truly impartial fact-finding inquiry. And this is where I think the American people, the vast majority of the American people, are seeing right through this and are deeply frustrated that so much time and energy is being consumed on this when the challenges, the issues, the concerns, the hopes and dreams that they have in their everyday lives are going unheard. I think it's very telling that since this whole process began, even when talk of an impeachment inquiry first started, at every one of my town halls, going and stopping at small businesses, talking with families, house parties, I think I've gotten a total of 2 questions about impeachment for months.
All right, so before we get to the nitty-gritty, I want to make sure that you all remember to subscribe, hit that like and notification, or hit that notification bell and that like button, and don't forget to share this as well. So what Tulsi said here was absolutely perfect. You can tell she really has her hand on the pulse of the working class and the people that she's meeting with, rather than focusing on what the headlines are saying. What would grab the best headline? What will the Democrats say if I do this? What will Republicans say? Like, she's echoing the thoughts of the average, everyday people who you run into while walking down the street. People who are not necessarily hyper political or aren't part of the PBH revolution, the partisan butthurt revolution. When she says that Nancy Pelosi is making up things as she goes along, that's actually exactly what she's doing, by the way. Technically, you're supposed to get the articles of impeachment to the Senate as expeditiously as possible, unless there is a legitimate procedural reason in the House as to why that can't happen. Like an administrative reason. Maybe the power went out. Something crazy like that. Can't do that. Now, of course, the reason that she's holding up the articles of impeachment is for partisan reason, right? But if Nancy Pelosi is making a decision to hold up the articles of impeachment, you really do have to ask yourself, what would be the excuse that she would use that would be acceptable to the media? Now, her excuse has become Mitch McConnell says that he will not allow Democrats to ask any witnesses in the upcoming proceedings. Now, that's not really how the rules work, ladies and gentlemen. It's not how the rules work. Generally the Senate is headed by the vice president. They are the Senate leader, if you will. But that's not the case in an impeachment hearing, or I should say in an impeachment prosecution, I should say. And it's the Chief Justice instead who is the HNIC. For those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. He sits where the vice president would sit because otherwise it would be a conflict of interest, obviously, right? If I'm the vice president and I want to kind of get the president out of power so I can take over, I'd be more inclined to proceed over to my president's proceedings as well, or impeachment proceedings as well. And of course, you got the other side where the vice president could be so hyper-partisan that he won't play fair. Now, because the Chief Justice of the United States of America is in charge here, Nancy Pelosi is alleging that there is a potentiality for Mitch McConnell to rig the rules of the game. However, that is actually not how that goes. According to Robert's Rules of Order, the Chief Justice does rule on all of those types of decisions, any procedural decision. When Bill Clinton was impeached, every rule that the judge, every motion that the judge ruled on, every procedure that the judge ruled on, nobody fought back. Obviously, well, I don't know. That was pretty hyper-partisan procedure, but this is pretty hyper-partisan as well. So you obviously can't just assume that that's going to take the place. Now, if the justice rules on something and the Senate majority or a majority in the Senate doesn't like the rule, then the Senate can overturn that judge's ruling with a simple majority according to the Robert Rules. Now, what does that mean for this case? It means that if Mitch McConnell doesn't want witnesses call, he could technically overrule the judge and say he doesn't want witnesses called and then take it to the floor for a vote. I find that very, very difficult to believe. That will be the first time in history, by the way, that that's happened. There have been times in history where the president hasn't participated in their own impeachment ceremony or testimony. There have been times where some witnesses witnesses are asked to come, but they're not subpoenaed to come. That has happened before. But when you're talking about overruling a judge's rule that there are allowed to be witnesses introduced, you're in completely different territory that has not been explored. And for some reason, I doubt that Mitch McConnell will be able to convince the Republican Party that witnesses shouldn't be, just the popular Republican Party at large, that witnesses shouldn't be introduced. So I find it laughable that Nancy Pelosi actually thinks that Mitch McConnell really would disallow completely the calling of witnesses. But I also find this interesting. If Mitch McConnell says, I'm not going to allow any witnesses whatsoever, you have to wonder what his strategy is. Like saying that, because you can't just disallow the Democrats. If you disallow Democrats from having witnesses, then it's surely going to mean you're not going to be allowed to call any witnesses as well. But why would you do that strategically? If you call your witnesses, you're going to beat the crap out of the Democrats. Not only would you beat the crap out of the Democrats with the witnesses, but you'd actually gain a substantial amount in the polls. You would win a lot of money from obviously their voters, not from Dems. But they would be able to fundraise a lot of money. When it's all said and done, Donald Trump would be more popular. I mean, he's going to be more popular after the Republicans vote anyway, and they acquit him. But he would be more popular after the testimonies. I know this because Jimmy Dore just did a video talking about this. Right after all the evidence was introduced, impeachment support dropped across the board amongst all political parties. So why wouldn't you call witnesses knowing when evidence is introduced, it's always favored your side? Oh, that's right. if he did that, then you might find out something that we've talked about over and over and over again. If you did that, you might find out that this whole Ukraine gate nonsense with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and Nancy Pelosi and the money she's taking and the Clinton Foundation and all that good stuff, guess what you might find out, ladies and gentlemen? You might just find out that the Republicans in 2015, 2016, and before that were just as guilty of Ukraine gate, of participating and engaging in Ukraine gate, as the Bidens were. You forget, the Obama administration was not a political monolith, ladies and gentlemen. James Comey was a Republican. Even Robert Mueller, who was appointed special investigator, Republican. Andrew McCabe, I believe, was a Democrat. Rod Rosenstein, Republican. Jeff Sessions was obstructing the investigation into the Ukraine that Donald Trump tried to start in 2017. Republican. Jeff Sessions also obstructed the investigation into the Clinton Foundation that was started during the Obama administration. That was reported by The Hill in 2017. Jeff Sessions is a Republican. See, what we're finding out is that, surprise, surprise, there is a bipartisan consensus on corruption. And they both benefit from not calling witnesses. Because if you call one too many witnesses, you might find out that some of these Republicans are just as bad and just as guilty as the Bidens of the world. And people may once again want even more so an outsider. But I also want to talk about this. A couple of days ago, I did a video where I was very clear. I said this impeachment is to do nothing more than to hurt Joe Biden, or help Joe Biden, to protect Joe Biden, to protect Hunter Biden, to protect the establishment, because, well, Joe Biden is the establishment's last hope. Yes or no? Buttigieg, done. Warren, done. Kamala, dropped out. Booker, done. Castro, never had a chance. Biden is it. And as you can see, and if you have seen, Biden is not even close. When it comes to the odds of whether or not Bernie or Biden will win, you have to remember these polls, they favor the establishment. And so if the polls favor the establishment, and Bernie is damn near tied with you in almost every poll now, that means Bernie is smacking you in almost every poll. Like, from history, we know this. Whenever they said that Bernie had a 10% chance of winning in Iowa, he tied Hillary Clinton. Remember that? Whenever he had a slight marginal lead in New Hampshire, he destroyed Hillary Clinton. When they said that he was 25 points to 30 points behind in Michigan, he obliterated Hillary Clinton. So from what we know from polling, if an outsider is tying the establishment, it likely means they're really beating the dog crap out of them. Not to mention the number of volunteers Bernie has, not to mention the amount of individual donations that Bernie Sanders has. So understanding this, once again, I'm still a Bernie supporter. I've endorsed Tulsi. I think she's the best candidate, but I'm still a Bernie supporter. And I can recognize objectively when they're trying to hurt the man. Now, if I'm Nancy Pelosi and if I'm Mitch McConnell, because of disdain for Bernie Sanders and what he could potentially do for this country, and not only the country, by the way, but the wave of people who may come after him and because of him, that's scary as hell to both Democrats and Republicans, no? If I'm Nancy Pelosi and I'm Mitch McConnell, I could put on this little charade, this show, this back and forth. The same thing that Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi do right before they do things like introduce a new version of the Patriot Act and pass NAFTA 2.0. Things like that. Well, they'll pretend like, oh, we don't want the wall. You know what? Let's just give him money for the wall. When Trump pretends like he hates Pelosi and then will go campaign for her, he said he would campaign for her. I actually really like Pelosi. She's doing a fantastic job. I campaigned to keep her as House Majority Leader. Remember that? Speaker of the House. He said that. Yeah, that was him. So they pretend like they're not friends. They pretend like but they all have been raising money off of this impeachment. It's a business. The threat of any outsider is a problem for them. But because of how dominant Bernie has been, Bernie presents a unique problem to them. So if I wanted to hold up the impeachment, maybe I create this little back and forth between me and Mitch McConnell, pretend like I'm so upset about the procedure, like I already don't know what the outcome is going to be. Maybe I do that. And maybe around, I don't know, the end of February, the beginning of March, a week or so before the California primary, where I would likely be holding a bunch of rallies if I was Bernie Sanders, because this is my most popular state. Maybe a week before the California primary, or right before the first Super Tuesday, maybe, I say, you know what, Mitch, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's start the trial. Bernie, we need you here right now because it is absolutely required for every senator to be at that impeachment trial. So all of a sudden, Bernie can't hit the road now, can he? Bernie can't meet people one-on-one now, can he? Bernie is preoccupied. You leave the campaign in the hands of his subordinates, a couple of which you can trust to get the job done correctly, a few of which, probably most unfortunately of which, have proven to be a little bit incompetent from time to time. There's like two people I trust in that campaign. One person that I trust who's officially in the campaign, that's Nina. And then, and Bree. I trust Bree too. I like Bree. Bree's dope. I trust Bree. I trust Nina. And unofficially, his surrogate, Cornel West, and of course, Killer Mike. And that's basically where that stops. Everybody else, they're off on their own little tangents. Some defend Warren, some prop up neoliberal talking points. Guess what? All of a sudden, if you take you cut the snake's head off, if you will, you might see that campaign fall into shambles right before the largest section of the Democratic primaries. No. Which is interesting because everybody told me I was crazy for suggesting that this was going to help Joe Biden. Because guess who doesn't have to be anywhere once this impeachment trial starts? Guess who don't? Joe Biden. Now, if I'm the Republicans, who do I want Donald Trump to go up against? Who do I want Trump to go up against? Probably Joe Biden, right? Because who's the easiest one to beat for Donald Trump? Because Joe Biden is demonstratively worse than Donald Trump. It is no ifs, ands, and buts about it, and I can do a whole expose video about it if you want to hear about it. He's worse. And Trump has opposition research upon opposition research upon opposition research against Joe Biden. So, of course, who do you think the Republicans want? Joe Biden. Who do you think the Democrats want? Not Bernie Sanders, which means by default, Joe Biden. Why do you think everybody went so hard at Tulsi's president vote? Because they wanted her to choose a side, because either side, she gets hurt. Now, Bernie has chosen the side of impeachment. I don't agree with him. That probably would hurt him a little bit. But if there were witnesses called and Joe Biden was destroyed by these witnesses, it would have helped him. But now, they may not. Who knows? But I do know this. How effectively do you believe Bernie Sanders can campaign if he's not on the campaign trail before the largest section of this political or presidential primary? Al Martins, thanks for the super chat. Since 1920, once women were nationally allowed to vote, the better looking face won over 97% of the time. It's why Trump beat Hillary. You wrong for that. You wrong for that. The point at the end was creative though. You kind of hit me with the political version of Epstein didn't kill himself. But in all seriousness, you have all these Bernie supporters who are pushing the impeachment, defending nonsense. That's really what's happening, right? They're defending nonsense. And even though we can see, if you're looking at this objectively, come on, get over your PBH, get over your partisan butthurt, look at this objectively, and you'll see that it is all to stop the outsider candidate from beating Joe Biden. The Republicans want Joe Biden because he cannot beat Trump. The Democrats want Joe Biden because he is not Bernie Sanders and he is not Tulsi Gabbard. To a degree, probably because he's not Andrew Yang either, because Andrew Yang is somewhat of a wild card when it comes to calling out the establishment, no? So that's why this has all been a political charade, and Tulsi called it out from the beginning, and y'all bitched and attacked her for it. And she was, I mean, I'm sure she wasn't looking out for Bernie, because it's not, I mean, when she's doing her political thing, that she's worried about winning. But by her exposing the truth about this impeachment process, y'all attacked her for it when her truth directly affects whether or not Bernie Sanders could be hurt by this. If you are paying attention, then you can speak out and say, hold up, everybody. We may need to take 2 steps back. We may need to look at this from a different angle and figure out why I'm agreeing with Neera Tanden on impeachment. Why am I agreeing with Nancy Pelosi on impeachment? Why am I agreeing with Tom Perez on impeachment? Why am I agreeing with Joe Biden on impeachment? Kamala Harris on impeachment? I said this yesterday and I'll say it again before I go. Make no mistake about it. I have one simple rule that will never lead you astray, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to any issue, before you read any article, go to Neera Tanden's Twitter. Figure out what she supports. And if you find yourself, before going to his Twitter or her Twitter, supporting that issue, do not support it anymore, because if Neera Tanden supports it, it's not good. Neera Tanden is always wrong. Neera Tanden is always wrong. One more time. Neera, say it with me. Neera Tanden is always wrong. Always. Always, 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 always. You want to know about impeachment? Go look at what Neera Tanden supports. Neera Tanden hates impeachment? Okay. Or loves impeachment, excuse me. You know what? I'm not for impeachment. I'm not about that. Neera Tanden hates Bernie. You know what? I may disagree with some of the stuff he says, but hey, if Neera Tanden hates Bernie, it's probably because he's on our team. Neera Tanden despises Tulsi. Oh, well, you know what? I mean, the amount of disdain Neera Tanden has for Tulsi makes me believe in her even more. Neera Tanden loves Hillary Clinton, no matter what she does. Oh, well, I still hate Hillary then. That sucks. Neera Tanden loves Kamala Harris. Woo! I really don't like Kamala now. I thought I didn't like her before, but that confirms it. You see, it's that easy. It's that easy. Neera Tanden is always wrong. We call it the Neera Tanden rule, all right? Go check Neera Tanden's Twitter before you come to. If I put something out and you see that Neera Tanden's talked about it, go check her Twitter before you come to my comment section. Because if you support Neera Tanden, you don't get to come to my comment section about shit that I talked about, talking about how wrong I am when you out there cheerleading beside Neera Tanden. Nah, bruh. All right, people. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.